You have a political system here in Harrisburg, which, as you mentioned, doesn't always see eye to eye
Right.
on policy issues. And then we come here in the month of June, and there's really not a whole lot of discussion that's going on. And then the budget winds up getting late. And we got people at home that are impacted pretty significantly. I'm a jokey kind of guy. I like to make jokes. I kind of feel like this is beyond a laughing matter at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I introduced legislation that would allow the treasurer to release 85% of last year's spend. What a lot of people don't know and a lot of people don't want to talk about up here in Harrisburg is it only takes 81% of what we spent last year to cover all of our federally mandated issues and our constitutionally mandated issues. So while they're debating the rest of the budget, at least get those things out there. Our schools need to be funded. Again, going back to the Medicaid, which takes care of our seniors, takes care of some of our youngest who are uninsured. Those are huge issues that we can't just debate about for a few months while grandma doesn't know whether she's getting kicked out of her nursing home.
Right. Or whether or not, schools have to pass their budgets.
Right.
They're legally required to pass their budgets, but it'd be nice to have some predictability as to what they're going to get from Harrisburg in order to do that.
Certainly. As a matter of fact, I was just having a discussion across the aisle. I'm going to be co-sponsoring a bill that would allow the school districts to do their budgets once we've completed ours.
Okay.
And then I'm either going to author it or author it with another member to just in statute move that June deadline for the schools to July. So they at least have a month buffer, even if we get our ducks in a row in an orderly fashion. They have an extra 30 days to be able to figure out how to budget there.
So if it goes all the way to November, then
So one bill would say you can get it done after the state has completed theirs. The other bill would simply move the current deadline to July.
Okay.
So if we're actually getting a budget on time, you would have no issue. You would have 30 days to review what you were actually receiving from the state and be able to make the adjustments appropriately for your local tax base.
Okay, fair enough. So legislative approaches are in order to fix the situation. Because I think folks at home, if they don't have someone that is requiring or needs state services right away, they see the headlines and they think to themselves, "Oh, okay, good. Government's not operating where it should be. Duh. Welcome to Pennsylvania." And you have some, two legislative approaches in order to help deal with that. And I want to get to a third that you have as well. But I think we almost need to look at what the fight actually is here in this building. And so working backwards a little bit, the governor begins the governor begins the budget process back in February. He sits down in a joint forum with both the House and the Senate, and he says, "These are my budget ideas." And this year, where was he at?
So I think you hit the key: budget ideas.
Okay.
When a governor or at the federal level, a president says, "This is what I'm putting out there as my budget," that's just what they want. That's a wish list. That's not a reality. And unfortunately, both last year and this year, the majority in the House has said, "Oh, that sounds fine, and we'll give you what you want," without thinking about the cost. And that's just not how things are supposed to work. The governor, admittedly, he's trying to make everything look fluffy and wonderful and everybody gets a lollipop, but we can't afford the lollipop. And that's a big part of our problem right now.
It's funny that you use that example, lollipop, because one of the ways that he wants to fund the everyone gets a lollipop is he wants to put something very special in those lollipops. What do you want to put in those lollipops?
So we have marijuana legalization, of course, is one of them, and then on skill games, which is a totally separate issue. For me, when people ask me where I stood on the last marijuana bill, I just bring up how terrible the bill itself was.
In order to prop up his spending, in order to give Pennsylvanians more, in order to give him that, in order to give Pennsylvanians that special lollipop, what's he want to do?
So one of the big things is recreational marijuana. Now, the bill that was last introduced and is most likely to get introduced again actually can't be passed. They're trying to do a state store model. Okay, much like our liquor stores, which I think we should privatize anyway. But on the recreational marijuana side, they want to have leases and owned buildings from the state, and then have state employees selling the recreational marijuana. Now, the issue there is, and why I don't think that they're actually serious about it, I think it's just something that they throw out there to appease a certain portion of their base, is you can't use federal banking. And if you have a state employee, the state employee is in a pension system. And the pension system is tied to the stock market, which is tied to federal banking. So you couldn't actually write a check to the individuals who are working for the state. You can't contribute to their pension, which they're required under the union agreement that they have. So it's impossible to actually have a state store for this. So as long as they continue to do that, whether you're for it or against it, it's not going to happen.
Not that way.
It's not going to happen that way.
The state cannot be your weed dealer because the federal government won't allow it.
Well, right, and in a crazy thing, as we were looking at the last version that they had, we'd be the only state, business, or individual in the world who would lose $275 million in the first year of selling drugs.
Okay, explain that. The loss of $275
The loss,
million.
because of the investment that the investment that they would be putting into that, we would
Okay.
actually be at a loss, and the revenues on that just don't make any sense. And something that
So we're not talking about taking an existing Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board owned store and
Right.
and putting I don't know Kush right next to our Jack Daniels display.
right, we're talking about a completely
A completely separate infrastructure of retail stores.
Right.
And probably wholesale dispensaries in order to get the product in those retail stores.
that is correct.
New buyers, new
buyers.
commission.
And for the folks who, and I had a conversation with colleagues on the other side who, their big thing was recidivism in the prison system. Okay, well, guess what? You still can't afford the license. Doesn't matter unless you're a big corp, because you have to have so much cash on hand, usually $2 million in order to get this buy-in and $20 million to do this and whatever. So it still just benefits the big corporations within that system. And for those who don't have the money, who continue to grow or continue to sell, not only will they still be arrested for doing so, but now they're getting hit with tax evasion because it's a legal sale.
All right, so we went down a probably further down the adult cannabis path than,
absolutely.
than we wanted to.
But it's a really stupid.
Well,
stupid bill.
listen. Before our eyes glaze over a little bit, the governor says that we're going to get close to $750 million annually by looking at recreational use cannabis. Numbers are a little flawed on that, yeah? Even if we did it the way that he wanted it.
Well, I hope that at some point we could actually discuss a bill that I have out there that's to find about $774 million.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay, so I think that those are just made up numbers in order to fill a budget with
Yeah.
projected numbers.
Okay.
The revenue streams are not what they say they are. We're looking at $53.5 billion budget proposal right now, with about 47 to 48 million or billion, in actual revenues.
Okay. As you mentioned, the governor's looking, his proposal was a 53 and change billion budget for 26-27. That was his proposal. That was a 5.4% increase over last year. Let's break that down. You mentioned a really important point in our planning here. That's a lot of green. And we're not talking about the adult use green. I mean, that is a lot of cash. How did we get to that number? What's our back history on that?
So going back to 1681 when we were founded to the year 2000, we never spent over $20 billion in a budget.
Okay.
And here we are 26 years later looking at a $53.5 billion budget. That's crazy.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. And that also, if people say, well, inflation. Well, inflation occurred from 1681 to 2000 as well. Mm-hmm. And at no point did it spike in the manner in which it has. So we're overspending. We're not just overspending, we're spending poorly. How's
our efficiency? I mean, with numbers that high.
I think it's terrible. One thing that we have started to push when we were in the majority was performance-based budgeting. So every year, Department X comes and says, "Hey, we need $11 million more dollars for this and $100 million for this." Well, if you're not using the money that we already gave you in an effective manner, why are we giving you more money?
We're not going to give you more.
You don't just get an automatic raise. And when you go through the budget line items, you get a lot of automatic raises. Some are in tune with inflation, some are not. And we want to see the results. For me, government should be limited but efficient. And then lastly, it should leave us alone. And I don't think we're doing a very good job of that across the board. And I'd like to see more performance-based issues there. We actually are looking forward to how the numbers will come out with our universities, Pitt, Penn State, Temple in particular. As they come for money, we're now saying, hey, how many students are you actually graduating? How many of those students are actually staying in the area? Or are we just a brain drain taking it to other places and not reaping the benefits for the investment that we're
creating a really good core team of professionals to then market all over the country.
And all over the world. Absolutely.
You're somewhere, you have a cost-saving idea of about $750 million. We don't have to worry about cannabis, but we can do this instead. What's this?
So what I'm trying to figure out, I first want the confirmation data. And our hospitals, in my bill, would have to tell the Department of Health how many undocumented people they took care of, how much did it cost, and where did the money come from.
Okay.
Nowhere in there does it say you don't take care of somebody. It simply says how many were undocumented, how much did it cost, where did the money come from.
Strictly fact-finding.
Strictly fact-finding. Because I believe that there is $774 million that is being used on people who are here illegally within our healthcare system, emergency room visits, so on. So if you get hurt, you don't have your identification on you, no family around you immediately to go to the hospital to check on you. The hospitals put in a reimbursement to Medicaid. That's kind of like a 90-day window for you to produce those documents so they can either give it to your insurance company or bill you personally. When you never produce that information, do the hospitals keep that?
Where's it go?
Where's it go? Because I don't think they're going to, and this is no fault to the hospitals, but I don't see them voluntarily giving back the dollars that they need reimbursed in order to perform whatever that procedure is or whatever occurred there. So one of the groups who said, oh, this doesn't happen, in an interview that occurred with USA Today, ended up actually giving me what I think the number is that we're looking for, which is $774 million that comes out of the system. So every year, and for me, I'm less concerned about it going back into that general fund for stupid program XYZ. I want it to go to Medicaid for what it's supposed to be.
Okay, and I think that our listeners, viewers would appreciate a little bit of a breakdown, because people hear Medicaid, people hear welfare, they think of entitlement programs, and I've always thought it was a huge injustice that those programs are effective when they're run effectively.
Oh, absolutely. So for seniors, for instance, your medical needs are taken care of on Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
But the extra things that occur, long-term nursing care, in-home nursing care, anything like that is going to be paid by Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
Your income is not you're now on a fixed income with your Social Security.
And these are Pennsylvanians.
And these are
right.
Pennsylvanians, and it's Pennsylvania dollars. Yes, there is some money that comes from the federal government, but the rest of it comes from us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your tax dollars that you paid into that are now going to people who aren't from here,
Mm-hmm.
have no vested interest in the system, and aren't paying into that system as well. So, while grandma struggles to find a home and find a way to pay,
Mm-hmm.
somebody else just walks in here and gets the same care. It's not fair.
We can take better care of the people that need it and the people that have contributed to the system, perhaps worked their whole lives.
Absolutely. And the system, the initial intent of our system was to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. And that is somehow ballooned into,
If you need it, we're going to give it to you.
If you need it, I think here in the Commonwealth, we're looking at about 300,000 people who are working age,
Mm-hmm.
who receive benefits of some sort, that just need to go to work. And that doesn't mean that you might not need some financial support while you're working.
Mm-hmm.
The working poor is a real group of folks. But you have to put in the effort if you're able. For the folks that aren't able, I don't know anybody that would disagree with helping those who really, really need it. But for the people who are fully capable of doing so but choose not to, you shouldn't be living off the government.
It's okay to offer people a hand up. And I think that's what it's intended for. Agreed?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be a lifestyle.
Okay. Or generational.
Or generational. And that's a huge problem that we see is, the cycle of poverty is real.
Okay.
And breaking out of that cycle requires a number of things there.
Get us from point A to point B as to why government doesn't have the same hardships and have to make the same decisions that families do.
Pennsylvania families already have enough on their plate and are already spending enough money as is. I'm sure people who follow me get tired of me saying this, but I am a dad of 3. And I understand how difficult that is on the child care end. For those, who just are on tight budgets for Social Security, we see prices going up, we see all these things, and we're inverted on our population, which is another part of our problem, where the largest growing demographic in Pennsylvania is 80 plus. It's not newborns. And when you have a system, you at least need to be in a square, right?
Okay.
Where you have enough people at the bottom to fill the needs financially for those at the top who are no longer able to work. And what we actually have is an inverted triangle. And that contributes a lot to our issue here. It's not necessarily population loss in terms of people moving out of the state. It's we are not reproducing the population. We're well under replacement rate.
And how does increasing the size of government's annual spend past the rate of inflation?
It crushes everybody who's working. And we have a flat tax here in Pennsylvania, uniformity tax. So we're all equally paying the same percentage. And we're a middle class state.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this falls on the middle class. And when you increase the spending it just gets worse. And we hear the governor talking about, well, we need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Well, I mean, that'll eliminate all your mom and pop shops and restaurants and, everything we love and hold dear in our communities. And the real reason is not to lift people out of poverty. It's tax revenue, because you enter a new tax bracket.
So people that are getting paid maybe $8 or $9 an hour now, they get an immediate shot of $15 an hour. They get the headline, but at the end of the day,
And the costs go up for everything.
right. So are they ahead of the game at all?
No, not at all, because everything that you're purchasing, once that catches up, everything that you could afford for that 2-week period is now going to be even more expensive, because everybody in that production line is going up. But it's not just the base number that goes up. Everybody else is renegotiating their salaries and their hourlies up, because, if you're at 15, I was making 15, now it's standard across the board.
So
well, now
now
I
I
need
want-
to be paid 27. And
And the costs for government to do what it does.
always goes to the consumer. Always goes to the consumer. So we're always going to lose in that. And where we're also going to lose, and to go back to the budget, when the governor says he's going to dip into the rainy day fund at $4.7 billion.
Okay, and that's probably a good place to, to at least begin the wind down.
Yeah.
The governor's proposal did also include some, so he wants to dip into this rainy day fund. Why does Pennsylvania have a rainy day fund?
So the rainy day fund is there for a couple reasons. One, if you do have a off spending year, right?
Terrible year.
A terrible year. You're not bringing in the revenues from sales tax. The economy's bad, right? You at least have a little bit of a cushion that you can fall back on to pay the bills. But that also works as your credit, towards your credit score. So when Moody's and these other large portfolio managers are looking at this, they're giving us a credit score. Once that's eliminated, which the governor intends on doing, the credit score goes down, which means our interest rates go up,
Right.
which means we end up paying more ultimately in the future. And because it's a one-time use of that, you're probably looking at between a $1,700 and a $2,200 personal income tax increase
Okay.
in order to cover that cost.
So I want to go and I want to buy a new car. I'm going to take all my savings to pay for only the down payment,
Right.
to come home with a monthly payment that now I have to absorb somewhere.
That now exceeds what you bring in on your paycheck.
Okay. And so the governor wants to empty that
Right.
in order to achieve his 53 point.
Right. And it would be a totally different scenario if we were in dire financial straits due to something.
So it's not raining.
It's not raining.
Okay.
It's not raining. It is certainly not raining. We just have to do better at governing, and it's not that difficult. It's math. Stop doing things that don't work. We have grant funds and things. $25 million for solar panel grants. I live in Pittsburgh. It's the second cloudiest city in the country. Why are we using Pennsylvania tax dollars to buy all these solar credits, essentially, that are made in China, and the only people that profit from it are the Chinese? And we get very little, if any, actual input from the grid to that. So we're just throwing money away while making our adversaries
And
richer.
is the Chinese workforce getting anywhere near $15 an hour?
I highly doubt that, as they work in their slave labor camps.
So like a freeze-dried seahorse for 18 hours of work.
Yeah, and even and that's not to say that I'm anti-alternative energy. Like, I would love if Pennsylvania was exporting all of the windmills, because, you know, that
We can
help-
build them here, just put them up somewhere else.
It helps our coal industry. It helps our steel industry. Yeah, we have plenty of coal and we have plenty of steel. In order to make those windmills and ship them off to somewhere else to make their mountains look terrible.
All right, so we are about ready to close up here in the with Representative Rasel here at smoke-filled room. Wasn't the most exciting topic, but fiscal items normally are not. But sounds to me like we're on the approach to a couple other topics that will come on down in a later time period.
Certainly, and you know, some people who are up here love to talk and love to hear themselves. I'm the nerd who likes to do the work, so I apologize to anybody who's out there that didn't get the sexy topics. They got the nitty gritty, but it's the nitty gritty that actually keeps everything functioning.